All right, I think we are live. Let's see.
Seems that way, I think.
Seems that way. Let's see if there's. All right, actually, yes. So we're live on my main page, and then I'm going to share it in the group. Let me see if I can send you the link too. Sorry, everybody that's just joining. We are trying to work out the technical details right now. Live stream.
And then do I go into the group?
Yeah, I'm sharing it to the group right now. Link to today's live stream. Post. Okay. There's that, and then I'm going to send you share to see if you can forward this to anybody you want to.
All right, I see us. Okay.
There's that, and then I'm going to send you share to see if you can forward this to anybody you want to. Now I'm hearing myself, so why am I hearing myself? There's that, and then I'm going to send you share to. That's odd. Do you hear that feedback? You can forward to anybody you want to.
Yep, it's super delayed.
Now I'm hearing myself, so why am I hearing myself? Are you playing it? I'm going to send you share to. That's odd. Do you hear that feedback?
Maybe it's playing. Okay, maybe I had it pulled up.
Yeah, you had it pulled up, so we can't be watching it at the same time. Otherwise, it'll be super delayed.
Got you.
Which
Yay,
makes sense.
technology.
All right, we made it. I think we're here. So anyway, we'll get better at this. This is my first time doing this. So welcome to the first Those That Inspire live stream. This is Chelsea Elizabeth, and you go by the Yoga Yactie on Instagram, right?
The Yogi Yachty, yeah.
Yogi Yactie, yes. We have never actually met in person, but I've known you about a month, I guess, right now on Instagram, right?
Yeah, about a month. Sorry, I'm just making sure I'm all good on my technical side of it. Yeah, there we go.
No worries. Take your time.
Yeah, Instagram is a super cool place now. I've made actual friends on the internet.
I know. It's really funny, right? I think I was telling people, and I'm spreading the message that yes, there's a lot of bad things with social media, but there's a lot of amazing things. And some of my best friends are now just because of social media. It's amazing.
I love it. It's a cool new community. It feels new to me because I think beforehand, social media in general just sort of felt like this thing that was not real. And now it feels very real.
It does. And you're able to connect with like-minded people all over the world. My friend Chris and I did a live stream a few months ago, and he was in Perth, Australia, and I was in New York City. And like that is literally the farthest possible point on the face of the earth you can be. And it's just like we're sitting in the same room. So
one of my girlfriends on yachts is from Perth, so I can relate.
Yeah. All right, we have a few people here, so welcome anybody that's live. Joel says we're live. Hi guys, thank you for being here. So let's get into it. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and kind of what your mindset and your life has been for the last few years, and then we're going to dive into talking about the abundance mindset.
Cool. Yeah, so I am, well, I guess this is a longer story than it needs to be, but we'll keep it sort of short. My name's Chelsea. I am a health coach and a yoga teacher, and I'm also a freelance super yacht stewardess. So what that means is I am crew on private yachts. This is a little bit different than cruise ships. I think the first thing a lot of people ask me is, oh, so what's it like to work on cruises? And it's like, oh, it's different. They are private yachts. They're owned by one person or maybe a group of people in some cases, and we charter out to other guests. So I do this on a freelance basis. I've been doing it for 3 years now, and my first 1.5 to 2 years, I worked full-time on yachts, and prior to that, I was teaching yoga full-time for about 5 years in Charleston, South Carolina. And I had gone through a divorce in 2015, which catapulted me into a life that I never would have dreamed of, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. And what kind of got you in? You were telling me in the story a little bit about how you actually got into this whole thing. So tell me how you got started doing it.
Yeah, as far as yachting, you mean?
Yeah, as far as yachting, I think that's a really good start for people to get inspired and excited, and then we can dive into like where we go from here, because obviously not everybody's going to work on a yacht forever. So
yeah, absolutely. I don't know that I'd want to work on a yacht forever. It's definitely pretty physical labor, but I got into it 3 years ago in 2015. As I said, I had just gotten a divorce. We had been married for 5 years at this point, going on 6 years. And I was teaching yoga full time. And if you've ever experienced divorce, either for yourself or maybe you've witnessed in your parents or your friends or anybody that you love in life, if you have seen them grieve the loss of a relationship, especially a marriage, it is a huge turning point for a lot of people. And for me, yeah, it was a really weird time. It was a time of self-exploration. Of course, I was teaching yoga full time. I had just decided to let go of my bartending job, which I had been doing since I was 18 years old in Rhode Island, where I grew up. You can be 18 to bartend, and then I moved to Charleston, South Carolina. You have to be 21. But anyway, I've been doing it for like 10 years. And I finally just got to the point in my life where I said, right, bartending is no longer working for me. I need to let that go. But what that meant was also letting go of a awesome financial cushion that I really relied on.
Right.
And my ex and I, at this point, deciding to split, it was now I was at this pivotal point of, okay, that second income is also no longer coming into our home. I had to move homes, of course. We both moved homes. And I really had to reevaluate what I was doing. So at the time, teaching full-time, showing up for myself full-time, which basically just meant meeting myself where I was at in the grieving process of going through divorce. There was lots of phases of that. Right. Sometimes I would categorize it in maybe manic sense. Sometimes I would categorize it in a more of a depressive sense. And the tools that got me through those waves of emotion manifested in the form of teachers and friends and family and my support network of people, my students, even my studio. Me having to show up as a teacher got me out of my own head.
Right.
And at the time I was teaching yoga, one of my girlfriends was also teaching. She had been in yachting in her 20s. And I knew that she did this like yachty thing. I wasn't really sure what that meant at the time. She had a blog that I was really interested in. So I read that a few times and thought, that's pretty cool. And I don't know how you want to call it, whatever word you'd like to use, whether it's God or synchronicity or spirit or intuition or universe. I kind of use them all interchangeably.
Yep. I've had a lot of that happen in the last few weeks. So
yeah. Driving to the studio one day, it came to me like a lightning bolt. And the exact words were, I need to move on to a boat.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. So I called my friend Amanda and I told her that. I said, I need to move on to a boat. And she said, okay, I've had this conversation with 32 people. You'll be the 33rd and not one person has followed through. And I said, well, I'll be the first person to follow through. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So she sat down with me and gave me the list of how-tos, the 1, 2, 3s. What do I need to do to become a yachty? And I actually just listened to a blog, something the other day. And I loved the quote. She said, the universe loves momentum. And of course, you read The Alchemist the other day, Patrick. One of my favorite quotes of all times, which it was, synchronicity doesn't even surprise me anymore. It is so intertwined in my life that I'm just like, oh, yep, there's another one. So you posted my favorite quote of all time, which is, when you set a goal or when you choose to tell the universe basically that you're going to do something, the universe then conspires to make it happen for you.
Yes.
So that combined with the universe loves momentum, I mean, it happened as quickly as in July. I had this epiphany. I had the month of August to then sell all my belongings, sublet my apartment that I had just moved into 3 months prior, find a home for my kitty cat that I cherished and adored. I mean, that was probably the most painful thing. Like, bye, ex-husband. I have to get rid of my kitty. That's even harder. No, I'm just kidding. Sort of. So yeah, I had the month of August, so 4 weeks to get rid of my job. I mean, my whole life, as I had defined myself at the time, I had to let go of. And it was so exciting and such a whirlwind. I know it was a combination of adrenaline and a lot of bit of luck and a whole bunch of support and love from my friends and my community and my teachers and my students. And on September 1st, 2015, I moved to Fort Lauderdale. And by August 3rd, I was moving on to my first job as a permanent yoga teacher and stewardess on a 95 meter, that's 312 feet for us over here in the Western world, private super yacht. It happened that quickly. Awesome. Yeah. So I tried to keep that short.
Yeah. Definitely. I'm getting a bunch of feedback, so I'm going to try to get what I'm saying, and let's dive into letting you talk about the abundance mindset.
Awesome. So, wow, this is another big one. All right, how do I break it down? So it's helpful to know what abundance is not. And I would say the opposite of abundance is scarcity. And it's also helpful to look at the definition of the word abundance. And Webster's defines abundance as a plethora or a lot of something. And then the second definition is the belief that there is enough of the good things in life to go around. It literally says something along that line.
Right.
Or, it's the understanding that more creates more. And if you're coming from a place of scarcity, you often might fall into a habit of fear or jealousy or lack, right? The belief that you are not enough. Yep. So, yeah, I think over the years, and I've been blessed to live a pretty challenging life.
Well, I think having discomfort makes you grow farther. And I think that we've lost that a lot in our society right now.
Absolutely. And that was one of the biggest things that one of my students, when they asked me, at the peak of my yoga teaching career, I was fully immersed in my community. I was very comfortable. I had a following of students. I was making good money. I decided to drop it all and leave. And one of my students came to me and said, Chelsea, why are you doing this? And my only response was, well, I'm ready to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
As if going through a divorce wasn't uncomfortable enough. I guess, yeah, I was ready to be uncomfortable in the sense that I needed more for my own personal self-growth, because I knew that had I stayed in the situation that I was in, this comfortable community and this cushy place, yeah, it felt good, but I felt bored. And I kept coming back to what is next? What's the next step? What's the next question for me? What's the next answer? So I was ready to be uncomfortable.
I had a very similar thing. I had what everybody would think, great job in New York City, awesome apartments, everything was going well. And it just, something was missing. And then I was like, you know what? I need to go try this digital nomad thing and try to travel around the world a bit. And once I put myself in the room with other people that were doing something similar to what I was wanting to do, all of a sudden life opened up and there's all these like opportunities. And I think that's part of the abundance mindset, is like, we can create, like, there's endless things for us to be a part of in this world. And we just like, the more that we put ourselves out there, the more you get out of bed and don't just like sit there like being sorry for yourself that, oh, I don't have this life that's on this girl on Instagram, this guy on Instagram that's traveling around the world. You just start. You just like go outside and like start walking. And like I started taking pictures. And once I started taking pictures, I started like needing software. So I used my skills for software development to help these pictures. And then the more I took pictures, the more I was like invited to go on retreats. And it's just like, do you think that's kind of like the abundance mindset, or how would you relate it?
Yeah, so I missed a bit of that because the connection kind of went off. But what I
Yep.
gathered is I think it's a little bit along the same lines as that, the universe loves momentum,
Right.
right? So when you're at a point in change in your life, or when you decide that you want something different with your life, as soon as you make that decision, there is a higher power in the works that says, okay, I'm going to help you with this decision.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, if you reflect back on any time in your life, I think it would be impossible to say that there was at least one little inkling of something bigger than you, whether it was even your own driving force or I don't know, that one thing that that one person said to you, or that one check that someone randomly wrote you, or like that one little help from the universe where you were like, okay, I can do this. So, in The Alchemist, they call it like beginner's luck, I think. But once you get that initial luck, you start that momentum, and then fear cannot stop you.
Right.
Right? So it's so easy to let fear make excuses for you. And as a coach, what I've learned and what I like to teach my students and my clients is fear is a necessary thing to help keep you alive, right? If you are not afraid to cross the road with a blindfold on, or if you are not afraid to jump off of a cliff without being attached to something, then you need potentially to see a therapist because you might be suicidal, right? That fear is meant to keep you alive. However, let that fear sit in the passenger seat because you are in control of your own destiny. So with that fear in the passenger seat, you can say, hey, I need to like consult you for a minute, fear. Am I in danger? Is this stupid? Is this going to cause me or someone that I love physical or emotional harm? If the answer is yes, then it's time to reevaluate. However, if you let that fear of how am I going to pay the bills? Am I going to be liked? Am I going to get more followers on my social media? Am I going to prove my worth somehow? I mean, if you let that, I mean, that's life changing there in and of itself, right? So
Right.
if you're coming from this sense of abundance, you say, no, this is not how I define myself as a person. This is not my self worth. Because without all the likes and without all the money in the bank and without all the pretty pictures, I am still worthy of love, safety, and acceptance. And if we don't have those three things, that's when fear starts to say, hey, you're not safe, you're not loved, and you're not accepted. We need to do something different. But if you know cognitively and intuitively, I'm safe, nobody else really matters, their opinions don't really matter, I'm just going to do what makes me feel good, that is abundance,
I
right?
like that.
And I'm not going to choose to not follow my own dreams because I'm afraid that it's going to overshadow my peer. And I'm not necessarily going to I'm not going to look at my peer who is maybe having more success than I am and feel jealous of that. I'm going to be happy for them, and I'm going to still follow my own path and my own dreams because, I mean, it's super corny to say, but a flower doesn't not bloom in fear that it's going to make the flower next to it more ugly or less beautiful, right?
I
It
like that.
intuitively knows that collectively they make more beauty.
Exactly. I like that a lot. And going back to the fear thing, did you see my article yet about the yes theory jump with Will Smith?
I saw it the other day. I didn't have a chance to play it yet.
No, it's cool. I just was wondering because Will Smith talks about this a lot, and he's like the ultimate. He hates fear. Like he does not want to let fear control him. And like when he was challenged by yes theory, like there's probably not a lot of things that Will Smith hasn't done yet, right? He's like the biggest freaking movie star on the planet. But that particular thing gave him fear. And I'm sure he's not going to say yes to everything. That's not the concept of yes theory. The concept of yes theory to say yes to the right things. But when he was challenged by those guys, it was like, oh crap, like this is like really putting some fear in my brain and I have to overcome this fear. And what I love the most about, if you watch the video, at the very end, It's when he's still attached to that bungee cord being put down, he said, from absolute terror to pure bliss. And it's just like, when you overcome an element of fear, when you get past that element of fear, it's just like the whole world opens up to you. And that's where the momentum keeps going, because now what can we do next? We can reach out to people like you, and we can have a live stream. I'm not super comfortable right now actually being on this live stream, but
same.
we're doing it. We're here. So, and that's where like each one will get better and better. And the more we do it, the more we put ourselves out there, the more confident we become. And we have abundance in our own confidence there as well.
Well, that's something I tell my friends or people that are trying to get into yachting. And I actually just listened to a podcast that I helped one of my girlfriends record last week. So that's been another thing for me. I'm not on a boat right now. And there's like this big question of, what's next for me now? So a lot of it is just allowing myself to not fall back into fear-based thoughts about money and where's that going to come from and do I have enough, but really just allowing myself to follow my heart. And from that, I've had these amazing experiences like meeting you and recording this other podcast. And listening to it this morning, she asked me, what's one of your number one advice if you're trying to move onto a yacht? And that was exactly it. Like, of course, put yourself in the right place at the right time, but be a yes person within reason. I mean, don't hop on a boat that you feel like your intuition is telling you this is dangerous or sketchy, or there's like the wrong time and the wrong people there. However, if there's a job and you think, oh, I don't know how to do this skill yet, you will learn. Like, don't let that stop you from doing what it is that you want to do. It's like if someone wants to write a book, don't not do it because you think that your grammar isn't at par, like just start writing.
My friend Marie, I'm not sure she's watching this right now, but she was, when we were in the last Nomad cruise in the Mediterranean, apparently, I didn't know about this until like a month ago, but there was a whole joke around me. And it was all about like, oh, well, you don't know how to do that? Well, Patrick just like, go learn. Like that's what I'm all about. Like I had a conversation last night and I went to dinner with my cousin, and you don't know how to write a book? Well, let's break it down. Like, I think that's where the engineering in me comes in, is that as an engineer, you're a problem solver, and you start breaking a problem down into smaller and smaller problems. So yeah, I can't go out to a publisher tomorrow and probably write a book, but I can like write an article. I can write one article and publish it. And that's where the internet has really changed the game, because you can publish anything anymore. Like, that's also a scary thing.
Remember when like an accomplishment, like Elephant Journal published one of my articles in like 2014, and I was like, everybody read this, I'm gonna be famous. And it was like 100 likes.
I know.
Like, oh, okay.
I've written some articles.
I've written some articles. That's actually a really great point, and something that I wanted to actually post about today was like, referencing it back to abundance, right? How often do we define our self-worth by numbers, right? The numbers on a clock, the numbers in our bank account, the numbers on our feed, the numbers watching this, the numbers of likes, the numbers, like, it blows my mind how often I look at numbers and I think, I'm good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm good enough, I'm not good enough.
Right.
That is so crappy.
It is crappy. And we have like 3 people watching this right now, but if one little thing we say gives them like some inspiration, I think that is worth it, right? It's like each person we help by little.
Exactly. I had a teacher tell me, back, especially when I was first starting to teach yoga, and sometimes nobody would show up to the class. Sometimes it'd be 50 people. And I would say, how do you get through those classes when no one shows up? And she said, just keep showing up for that one person that shows up. Right. Just keep doing what you're doing for that one person that needs to hear your message. And that has been a game changer for me. And that, again, brings it back to that abundance mindset. Like, that one person and I had a life-changing conversation, and maybe it pulled them out of the trenches of grief, or maybe it helped shift their life a little bit, and now they're following their dreams. It's not about defining our self-worth based on numbers, which we do so often.
Yep. I want to bring up a couple of the comments that have been posted so we can talk to people that are actually watching. Ida said, I like that you said you are a blessing for having a challenging life. So I see if you learned a lot. And if you have any reaction to that, but I think that's great. I think putting yourself outside your comfort zone and challenging yourself will help you grow, right?
Absolutely. And I just saw that those comments were there. Cool. Thanks for pointing that out. um, yeah. And, it goes back, to my childhood. My father left and my younger brother and I were 10 and 12. My mom had to file bankruptcy. We lost our home. We were almost homeless for a little while, but it was the grace of someone at our church who let us move into the house that I'm still sitting in right now. But reflecting back, like there have definitely been pivotal moments in my life that have formed who I am. And to this day, I still holistically manage anxiety and psoriasis, an autoimmune disease that definitely came up in my life because of experiences that I had. And for many years, especially in high school and adolescence, I shunned a lot of my faith. I carried so much anger towards my father. I didn't feel like I was good enough unless I was a straight A student in all the college prep courses, and I was the captain of every sport that I played, and I had to be a part of every academic club there was. Like my resume to my colleges had to I really had to shine in those things in order to feel like I was worthy of love and acceptance. And thank God, have really been surrounded around the right people and the coaches and teachers, or maybe along the way I've been guided there, or I've sought it out, or my spirit just intuitively has known who I need to surround myself around. But one of the big messages is, turn your weaknesses into your strengths, right? Or turn your experiences into what drives you. And I truly have shifted a lot, from that scarcity mindset of I'm not enough, I have to prove myself. These places where disease came up in my body to, no, this is a complete blessing. Like these experiences in my life have formed who I am, and they've given me the drive to do what I do. And I don't know that I would have had the courage to drop everything and move onto a super yacht had I not experienced what it had been like in the past to lose absolutely everything and try something new.
Yep. And I relate that a lot to my life. Like I love the Steve Jobs quote where it's like, you can't connect the dots going forward, but you can connect them going backwards. And I could have a whole live stream and talk about that whole concept. We'll do that another day.
Cool.
Let me put up RJ's comment. It says, agreed. You can't look at someone and think it's impossible to get to where they are in life too, unless it's playing for the NBA.
Absolutely. I mean, look at somebody with inspiration, through the eyes of, wow, you inspire me, rather than allowing it to cast a shadow. Often when we look at somebody else's success, the initial emotion that we feel is a reflection of our own shadows, right? So if the initial emotion that I feel when I look at a peer of mine on the cover of Yoga Journal and I think, ooh, I'll never do that. Or I look at Gabby Bernstein and I'm like, you're doing all the things I want to be doing. Who am I? Any feeling that I feel of jealousy or lack is because I'm coming from a place of I'm not good enough, and because you're doing it, now there's not enough room for me. Like, where's my piece of the pie? How come I can't do that? And the reality is we absolutely can do that. It's just the walls that we put up based on old programming that stops us from doing that. And, there's nothing to feel shameful about if you've ever felt that feeling, right? So if you've ever felt like, oh, well, I can't give, like, what is this give from the overflow? I don't have any overflow, where like my cup is empty. Fill your cup first and then give from the overflow, right? So I'm not talking about depleting yourself to a point where you're exhausted and you can't show up for yourself and you can't show up for your family and you can't show up for your coworkers because you're tired. Like, right. I hear you. I hear you. That's a little bit of a different conversation, right? So to shift from that mentality, you first need to meet yourself where you're at with compassion. So if you're feeling like I can't give, don't feel shameful by that, right? There's programming that has been passed down generationally. Look at our grandparents and our great-grandparents that came from the Great Depression. right? These people have nothing, nothing. So that whole programming comes down through generations, and then we are raised in our little family unit, and the experiences that we have now formulates beliefs and habits that keep us in this old programming. So it's really important to remember to constantly reevaluate. Are my beliefs currently in alignment with how I'm feeling? Are my habits helping me to stay in line with where I want to go? Or are they keeping me stuck in where I currently am? And is that working or is it not working?
Right.
It's a lot of undoing, right? It's a lot of shedding the layers. It's a lot of unlearning what we think we know to be true. And in reality, what we think we know or what we believe is just all a formulation of our past.
Correct. Yep.
We're so stuck sometimes on bringing that past into our present and feeling shameful of that. And you and I have talked a lot about vulnerability, and give props to Brene Brown for this. If we can feel safe enough to be vulnerable and to share our stories, and for me to be able to tell you, yeah, I've been through the trenches of life and I've seen my mom in very, very vulnerable states, and I've had to be a caretaker at a very young age. And to be able to share that with you is where the shame starts to dissipate, because you are now meeting me with empathy.
Right. I want to go RJ made one more comment. He says, I get a lot that the market is too saturated. You got in too early and you're so lucky. It's really all about mindset. I think this is super, like, everybody talks about this, and it's a really big mindset to get over. I even had somebody, I was telling somebody about co-living the other day, and they're like, oh, like WeWork is already doing that. They got We Live. I'm like, sure, but like there's so much out there. There's like 9 billion people on this planet, and like there's so much more that we can do. So what do you think about that saturated idea?
I love that you say that. So of course, every time I speak, I relate it back to my story, because that's my perspective. And so I hope you don't mind if I kind of keep relating it back to.
No, we have to. I think that's great.
Yeah, when I first became a yoga teacher, and then when I decided to become a health coach, I mean, if you look around, especially, I graduated college in 2008. It was the year of the modern economy crash. There was very limited traditional jobs. And at the time, I was chasing the paycheck, and I was chasing the fancy business, the business card. None of it was leading to happiness. So I had to create this atypical lifestyle for myself, which really rooted a lot of those old dysfunctioning beliefs that there's not enough money to go around. There will never, I guess just being rich is just not for me. I come from not a lot of money, and I never will have a lot of money. And luckily, when I came out of yoga teacher training in 2013, there was a generation of teachers above us that really looked at us younger generation and said, hey, this isn't how it works, girls, because they could see that our generation that was coming out of this economy crash, that were having to create atypical lives, that were having to make a living doing things creatively and entrepreneurially, they could see fear as the root cause, or they could see how fear was driving all of our decisions, right? We were very competitive. There was only so many studios. There was only so many teachers. And this was the mindset that we had. And they looked at us and they said, that's not the case. There is a student for every teacher. There is a message for every person. There is a coach for every person. There's a therapist for every person. Like, people don't decide to not go to psychology school, to go and get their degree in psychology because they choose to not become a therapist because they believe that there's not enough crazy people out there, right? Like, it's interesting how we look, there's always going to be a need for more doctors. There's always going to be a need for more coaches. There's always going to be a need for somebody to fill a certain niche, which is why it's so important to look at your specific experiences in life and say, how can I create the life that I want to create out of my injuries or out of my wounds, right? From the wounded to a warrior, using those same tools. And it was such a relief when they said that to us, because so many times I would fall into that thought of, I'm just another one. I'm just a number. Yeah, there's no way I can be a successful yoga teacher because there's already so many out there. There's no way I could be a successful health coach because there's so many out there. There's no way I could get a job on a super yacht because there's obviously only so many super yachts and there's so many people trying to get that job. And time after time after time, I've proved myself wrong because I just have not allowed myself, or I have the right tools and the right people, the right accountability to say, there's plenty to go around. Creativity wants to be born. Money wants to be made. It's all out there. And there's a lot of it. Trust me. There's a lot.
I agree. And then that's where, like, I have particular experiences. I was just actually helping some woman at the at Panera an hour ago with wireless, and like, it's just because like I'm relating that because I have all these experiences with technology, and now with like entrepreneurship, and I have experiences going on retreats, and all of that stuff is now me. Like, it's nobody else has had those experiences besides me. And that's where I'm trying to let people know that we can be inspired by each other. And that's why I'm inspired by you, because maybe I want to be on a super yacht someday. And I think we got so into this mindset of like, we have to look up to these other people. Like, let's look at the people around us. Let's look at ourselves. Let's look at the people. And you have a sphere of influence, and your sphere of influence right now is, we have 4 viewers, and we're hopefully spreading our story. You don't have to have like 1 million followers. It could just be like the people around you. So,
and think about the times where you were maybe going through a transition or you needed to be inspired. It wasn't 20,000 people that you looked at for inspiration. It was 1, maybe 2 people that inspired you or helped you or got you to where you wanted to be. So who am I? It's kind of like a good friend of mine, Thad, who I just recently also recorded a podcast with. He had a really great example. He said, look at it like a coffee shop. You pay it forward and everyone buys a coffee for the person behind them. Who am I to then stop the line and look at the person behind me and say, you don't deserve this and I don't have enough to give you, when I just reaped all the benefits from all those other people? Everything that I know, everything I've experienced is because somebody else got me here. Or, I formulated it somewhere in my intuition and my cognitive brain from somebody else. I made it my own based on my own perspective and my own experiences, but it was something that I learned and picked up along the way. So who am I not to share that?
Exactly. It's so interesting. And this is where the synchronicity thing comes in, is like, I literally had this exact same conversation last night with my cousin. And it was like, the stuff that I'm telling you didn't come from me. Like, it can't come from me because I'm just a brain that takes in information and I take it in. Yeah. And then I process it and I'm like, okay, I like this. Like, I like watching Gary Vee's stuff. I think he's great. But I don't watch all of this stuff, and I don't necessarily want to be like Gary Vee, right? He's from Jersey. He has kind of like a polarizing, like in-your-face mindset, or in-your-face like personality. Cusses all the time, but I really do like a lot of his mentality and stuff. And like, you take his concepts and Steve Jobs and all these people together, and then you make it your own. You throw away the parts that you don't like from them, and you take the pieces you do like, right?
Exactly. In yoga or in Ayurveda, it's all about digestion, right? So if you look at when you eat something, an apple, right, you want to get to a point in your gut health where you are absorbing all of the nutrients and then crapping out all the toxins.
Okay,
right?
Good.
Take from it what you need and you shit out the rest, pardon my cuss, It's with is, right? If I experience something in life, nothing happens to you. Like, we are not victims of life. We are here because Spirit put us here for a specific reason. So things happen for us. Now, trust me, I say that coming from death, divorce, my parents, homelessness, my own divorce. Like, I'm not just saying this coming from like, I lived a really cushiony life, saying like, oh, I've never been through anything and things, I could look back at my life and say, wow, I've been a victim of divorce and homelessness. But luckily, I've been given the right tools to where I look back and I say, these things happen for me.
Right.
So in those experiences, where's the nourishment? Where's the vitamins? Where's the lessons that I need to absorb? And what do I need to let go of?
Right.
Anyone who I look at, who I'm inspired by, what do I need to take from your saying? And how can I leave the rest behind?
Exactly.
And that's also a really great leeway into what am I harboring? What toxins am I holding on to? What heavy metals have I absorbed in my life physically? What emotions am I harboring in my heart, in my hips, in my immune system, in my liver that are now manifesting as dis-ease, disease, anxiety, digestive issues, psoriasis? I mean, I can show you the patches on my arm. And I live and breathe this shit, guys. And I still every day, like, am working through. I mean, this is very much a practice for me, which I feel blessed for, because there's nothing worse than looking at someone and saying, okay, you can sit up there and preach it, sister, but have you lived it?
Right.
And I feel blessed that I can say, actually, yes, I have lived this. And I'm speaking from my heart, because it would be doing the collective a disservice to not share my experiences. Like, this is how we raise the vibration. This is how we shift from scarcity to abundance. This is how we change the world, right? Is by sharing these things and then meeting each other with empathy and then banning shame to circle it all back around. And hopefully we find something in the end.
I mean, my mom doesn't quite know, or doesn't, she's like all about like, oh, you're trying to change the world, and like that's too much. Like, but we can, if we share our stories, if we meet people like you. Like, I didn't know you before I saw your Instagram account, right? And now we're sitting on a live stream together, like, and then our interaction on this podcast may go a little bit farther, whoever watches it. But I've been talking about you, you might talk about me, and maybe at some point where we'll get together, we'll have on a yacht. I don't know what will happen.
Yacht party.
Yacht party.
Yes, that would be ideal. We'll just be guests on the yacht.
There we go. That would be better. But but we can do this. I've seen it happen. I'm going on the Nomad cruise again soon, and that started from one guy, like one guy's idea. And I mean, social media has really changed the game. So he was able to get over 100 people to come the first time. We now have over 1,000 alumni. There's 500 people coming on the next cruise. And it's just to see this spread. And then the people that have been on the cruises are building their own businesses because of people in the room that they met or the inspiration they got from. It's just, I know it can happen. Like, I just know it. And I think not enough people in the world have that mentality that they just have to know that something that has never happened can happen.
Absolutely. And that is actually so cool that you said that, because so I was meant to be finishing up a contract about right now. My contract ended a few weeks early. And on one hand, I was really excited about that. I knew that my contract was up in a few weeks, but the timing of it felt like a massive gut punch, right? Because I was like, ooh, I was planning on being here for a few more weeks. Like, I'm ready to go home, but now I have to like pack up all my stuff and leave in 6 hours. So like that kind of gives you a little glimpse into like the instability. Though yachting does give a lot of stability, it also can be taken away, whatever, just because someone feels like it. So that day I got into a taxi because I was in Monaco. I had to fill out some paperwork for my visa to come back home. And he said to me, this stranger, right? And of course this always happens, right? You get into the deepest conversations with the most random of people. And he said, Chelsea, I like what you're saying here. And what I believe is if you want anything in life, you have to have two things. You have to have faith and you have to be willing, right? And he elaborated. He said, you have to have faith that you can do this, that you have the ability to work through what it is that you need to work through to have the life that you want to live and to obtain all of your dreams, right? But then you also have to be willing. You have to be willing to put the work in. You have to be willing to see it through. So, I mean, with those two things, then that kind of circles it back around. If you are willing to put the work in, then you kind of have to have faith that your hard work is gonna pay off, and that there's maybe a bigger force helping you to make it happen, whether that's the universe or spirit. Again, all those interchangeable words that I like to use.
Agreed. Yep. Well, we've got 45 minutes in so far. Let's ask anybody on the call or that's watching. Do you guys have any more questions? And maybe we can, let's see, let's wrap it up with what are you doing next? Like, what's your plan and where are you going and what are you doing with your life that past just yachting?
Yes, I love that because I didn't know the answer to that question for a while, and I've been getting asked this question a lot lately. So obviously, like, there's a message coming down to me, like maybe you should think a little bit about the future because I've really gotten to a point where I have written so many stories about my life or how I thought that they were going to project, and then something happens, and like it's not just a new chapter, it's a whole new book. It's like,
Right.
okay, well, that didn't work out, so I gotta close that book and start a whole new one. So right now I am at home in Rhode Island, and my partner has a big exam in February. It's a big maritime oral exam it'll give him kind of the next step up that he needs to be a first officer on really, really big boats. So we have decided to take the next until February completely off from yachting, which is very challenging every time we're approached with a potential job. And this is again coming back to that scarcity mindset. I had an old captain call me last week and he said, we want a couple, we want you, you'll have the captain's quarters. I don't live on board. I only come on board for trips. It's the exact itinerary we want. It's the exact situation that we want. It's a double bed, which doesn't happen often. I mean, it's literally everything on the list that I wrote to the universe. And I called my partner and I said, what are we going to do? And he said, Chelsea, don't let fear drive this decision. If this opportunity is here, it will come up again. So let's stick to the plan. So until February, we're going to not work. He's going to study. We actually just booked a long-term Airbnb in Panama. So we're going to go hang out on the beach in Panama and play golf. And I'm going to just keep on doing what I'm doing here. I'm going to keep putting my story out there and see where it goes. Of course, I am a health coach. I'm not taking clients at the moment, and that's just because I haven't quite felt ready. And like, it's very important for me when I'm coaching to have my own 2 feet on the ground, literally and figuratively, to do that. So I've needed a little bit of time to do that. So I'm not taking clients quite yet, but I do have a couple programs that are like really in the work to bring people through over the next couple months. So I think that I'm letting that build itself. And in the meantime, I'm just spending quality time with, right now I'm in my mom's house for the first time really since I was 18. I'm living here temporarily, which is really weird. I'm 32.
I'm in my parents' house right now too, actually. So
it's awesome.
It's pretty cool. Like you get to, once you kind of took control of your life, you're able to spend more time with your family. You're able to do things that you're now in control. You have more flexibility. One thing I wanted to follow up on was like, it sounds like you're kind of in the same mentality as like, I guess a few years ago when I quit my job, I felt there was going to be some type of regret if I didn't do this at this point in time. I'm not at the point where I feel like there's any more regret. Like, I don't think I can feel like there will be regret anymore because now I'm just of the mindset that whatever can happen will happen. The right opportunities will come up. I got the right opportunity to go to Barcelona and then the next Nomad cruise to Brazil. People are now asking me to go on retreats. We're going to do one in Croatia next year. It's just kind of like what can happen. And that's the abundance mindset of like, what can we create from here and not feel like there's any regret anymore. So.
Exactly. And I mean, I have fallen victim to it so many times. And as I said before, this is very much an active practice for me, right? Yeah. So when that captain calls me up 5 days ago, and here I am talking the talk of abundance, and I say, wow, like this is exactly what I wrote down to the universe. This is what I want, which is a great practice, by the way. Write down what it is that you want. And it literally shows up to the T. I'm like, oh boy, I wasn't ready yet. Slow down. I need a little bit of time.
Yep.
It really takes that practice to say, okay, I'm not ready yet, you know, and let it birth itself. Let myself come from that place of abundance, knowing that if it came up once, it'll come up again.
Yeah. And what I was going to say, like, I just started the idea for this group. It's called Those That Inspire for anybody that's not watching through the group. But but that was a year or more in the making. That was me. I actually wrote an article about those that inspire over a year ago. I bought the domain name over a year ago, but I didn't actually start like really pushing it until about a month ago. And it's been all building that foundation, and I'm still building it. Like this is just a foundation called like get me comfortable to talk on this, but I want to build this into maybe a conference someday, a podcast. And it's that daily thing. Like we have to just keep going, and you build the foundation, then you're ready, and then you can go.
Exactly. Nothing before it's time. And I love that because I feel it feels different for me in my body than everything happens at the right time. And I'm kind of like, well, yeah, okay, but when? I like the idea more that nothing before it's time. And it's kind of like, okay, it gives me this sense of ease. Like there's no rush. Right. I don't have to like put this crazy pressure on myself like I do all the time to produce, to create, to make something, to check it off the list. Like just breathe, live your life, have a little fun doing it, you know, like let's just let this birth itself. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now too. And of course it didn't come without planning. You know, I worked my bum off all year in Europe on charter with not a lot of sleep and a lot of stress. But, you know, financially now I can say, right, we've planned for this, we've budgeted for this. So obviously there are some logistics if you are thinking about maybe making the leap into doing something atypical. Have a real look at your finances and how long you could live without an income, and think of creative ways to make incomes. I mean, I love the idea of, I mean, direct sales can be a little bit in your face, but what I love about them is that they create opportunities for people that might not otherwise have one. So like I can't blame my friend that reps some other multi-level marketing company, because I'm like, hell yeah, you're putting in the work, you're doing what you need to do, and I will support you in the way that I can. So without being illogical, like you said, be a yes person, but to the right things. You know, if some creeper is asking you out on a date and you feel like your intuition saying, hey, this guy's not safe, then say no to that, obviously. But it's an opportunity that comes your way, see what might happen. I mean, like you said, even you and I doing this Facebook Live, we don't really have, and you know, we have a structure in the sense that we wanted to talk about abundance. Okay.
But I think that's a good point. It's like I didn't actually write down any questions. Like I wanted this to be more us just talking. And I think we succeeded in that case. And I do have a vision for what I want the group to become and stuff like that. But I don't know how that's going to pan out. And like every step along the way will be a fork in the road. And then we'll just like, oh, let's do this. And then it will grow into something that I don't even know I can't even imagine it yet. But I'm excited about it. So.
And that's where it's important too to have a coach or accountability or someone that you're sharing these things with, because then you can have someone to say, right, these are the steps that I've taken this week. This is what I'm doing now. How can you help me get clarity in this place? What do I need to let go of? You know, so it is really helpful to have someone like a health, lifestyle, abundance coach, or a teacher, or friends, or, you know, those who inspire, look at other people and say, I need accountability and I need your help because I'm a little stuck, or I need some inspiration. So yeah, but with the right steps, you can live a life by design. I think that's sort of like a tagline of our generation these days. You know, who wants to live a life by design, and how can I make it happen? And with the right planning and the right accountability and a little bit of luck and a bit of, I don't know, passion, you can make it happen.
Well, I'm going to give you a quick thing. Just talk about the group real quick. What I see this growing into is like a group where we can all like have fun together. We meet up in certain places, but then we also like, let's say somebody wants to come into the group, they want to get past their mindset, and then they want to become a Yachtie, I guess. Sorry, I can't really talk right now.
Yachtie, there
you go. But if somebody was want to be a photographer, then we'll have other people in the group that you can learn from. So I want it to become a resource for people. So I'm excited about it. And I want to also, before we end on how to find you, Joel just mentioned, and I'm going to put him on up. He says, I realize how much fear is driving me. I'm starting to see abundance. This is spectacular. Thank you.
Yay, Joel. Thanks for being here.
So super excited. Thank you, Joel, for coming. And I'm hoping that we helped you. And let's just end with where can somebody find you?
Yeah, so my website is theyogiyachtie.com. There's a blog there. There's connections to my Instagram, which is the Yogi Yachtie. There's also a free resource page on there. So, of course, I mentioned I do holistically manage psoriasis and anxiety. So the tools and tricks that I use to manage those two things, if you have an autoimmune disease or if you're dealing with anxiety or depression, you can find some resources on there to help. Hopefully that's helpful for you. And yeah, basically through those two places, you can find direct contact with me. So I'd love to hear from you. Come say hi.
Awesome. And if anybody wants to join the group, send me a message and I'll add you. And for now, I think that was a great first start. So thank you for your time.
Thank you all for being here. Thanks,
All right,
Patrick.
thanks, guys. See you soon. Bye.
Ciao.